with this year's theme being Made for This Moment, Power, Policy, and Progress. Before we begin, we would like to share a few housekeeping notes. First, please silence your phones so not to disturb the session recording. Second, please make room for others. Lastly, if you must leave the session before it concludes, please use the side aisles to do so. We look forward to an informative discussion. Please take your seats as the session is about to begin. Thank you.
For everyone that comes after me, there is a little hole in the stage if you are wearing heels. Thank goodness I've been doing core work. Okay. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. It is so good to see you. You guys are in for a treat today. This is going to be a powerful and dynamic panel. Welcome to Seizing the Moment, empowering Black entrepreneurs and small businesses through AI, digital innovation, and venture capitalism. I have the privilege and the honor of bringing up our senator and my friend, Senator Angela Alsobrooks from New York.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see all of you. Would you do me a favor? Give yourselves a round of applause. You all are out today and you're here to talk about how to move our community forward. I want to thank Maia for being here and for the introduction, and to say thank you so much to all of you for coming out. I expect that today's discussion is going to be most informative and engaging, and I believe that these are the types of conversations that allow us not only to dream of a promising future, but to lay out what steps are necessary for us to get there as a community. It's how I've been able to look at my work on the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. I am there, so you know, to build a future of prosperity and to help lay out multiple sustainable pathways to reach that goal. But successfully shaping the future means very little if we ignore the lessons of the past. In fact, I have been reminded so often recently of the words of a person whose writings I love, James Baldwin, who said that we are trapped in history and that history is trapped in us. And what he meant by that is that which we fail to heal will certainly repeat itself. And so we are trapped in that history, and over our history we've seen multiple, for example, industrial revolutions, ones that generated upward mobility, but not for everyone. Each time, the new wave got up and running before minority and disadvantaged communities could take advantage and rise with it. What compounds matters is that the investment landscape has largely tilted away from our community. Black professionals are heavily underrepresented in venture capital, particularly at senior levels. In 2024, Black employees made up only 6% of all investment partners and only 7% of a firm's investment committee. And it shows in the results. Median fund sizes among Black managers are well below industry averages. And last year, startups with Black founders received, check this, only 0.4% of total funding. These aren't inequities that we can simply paper over on the road to future prosperity. We have to be intentional about fixing them. So right now, Discovery has us on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. AI and digital currency have taken off and have reached meteoric heights in the last 9 months. And if we carry those lessons from our past, we can be in a position to capitalize on this new wave in ways that we never have before. That's one of the main drivers of my work on the Banking Committee, creating a future where we don't simply settle for surviving financially, but our goal is to thrive. And the truth of the matter is that our party, I believe, seems scared to talk about making people rich. That doesn't scare me, it excites me, because it is my goal to create wealth for all of our communities and to create wealth that we can pass on to our children. Generational wealth ought to be the word that we talk about again and again and again, is how to create it in our communities. and we shouldn't be afraid of it. What should trouble everyone is that the American dream has fallen further out of reach. We used to dream about striking success and leaving our children a future better than our present. And the fact is, this story is becoming more rare, and that is what should scare us. We have to get back to remembering that prosperity is the prize, not something we should apologize for. And we should be working to build diverse pathways to get to it. There's so many opportunities to push ahead. For example, look at what Baltimore is doing. I was with the mayor this morning, Mayor Scott, and they are using, believe it or not, blockchain technology to reduce vacant housing and to reduce obstacles to home ownership. That's how wealth is created. Home ownership is one of those tried and true pathways to prosperity that has become harder to find recently. In fact, when my parents married at 21 and 22, and for those who are wondering, my mother is the cougar in that relationship. By myself, a younger man. But when they married, in spite of the fact that my mother retired as a receptionist and my father as a car salesman, within 5 years of their marriage, they were able to purchase a modest home. The average age of first-time ownership now has moved closer to 40 years old. But we know that it can be possible again to do what my parents and many of our parents did, but it means that we are going to have to lead. That's why I work so hard on the Genius Act. Stablecoin is one of those emerging markets that we can capitalize on. And it's a complex discussion that we can get very passionate about. I never knew until I worked on that Genius Act. I got in a room with senators on either side of the table, and I have to tell you, it got to be pretty tense in there. Some tantrums were thrown at the table. I was thinking, oh my God, are you serious? I mean, the tempers were flaring. But you know what we never did? We never got up from the table. And that's why I'm still at the table debating market structure, which is the next phase of digital asset legislation that is beyond the scope of Genius. We have to determine how to regulate these technologies in a way that allows for growth that also protects investors from fraud. These are complex talks, but what I want is to be secure in the knowledge that people and businesses in Prince George's, Baltimore, the Eastern Shore, all across our state and all across our country have the same access to human and financial capital as entities in New York and Silicon Valley. Changes like these often take time to develop, but that's why we stay at the table. In spite of whatever broke out at that table, it was a lesson that we stayed at the table, and if we are not at the table, we have no say-so in how it turns out. But we need more of us at the table so that our priorities do not get overlooked as they have throughout our history. But I'm here now in a position to make the partnerships that matter, taking a leading role in market structure negotiations, and I'm here now, and I'm here for you. That's why I'm in those rooms and at those tables, because I am fighting for you and for all of us, fighting for those of us who are not yet at the table, fighting to build a future that we are dreaming of. That's the dream that's being threatened by the current federal funding environment. It's true that we need sustained federal investment, and I'll never stop fighting to secure it, but we can also look at this moment as a great opportunity for private investment to step up. We've seen that there's ample room for improvement beyond investment, the kind that will fuel the rise of AI and digital finance. This challenging season won't last forever, but while we work to get out of it, we need venture capital to take a larger role and to fill in the gaps that are being vacated by federal investment. We know that failing to learn from our history will doom us to repeat it, and we're positioned to change course. That's why we want to do everything that we can moving forward. History says the future we want won't be handed to us. We have to seize it. And it's up to us to make sure that we are not shut out of the next economic breakthrough. So I'm looking forward to hearing from this tremendous panel today. I want to thank them in advance for lending us their expertise. I'm so proud to have them here today. They're going to share their brilliance with you. So I want to thank you all again for coming out. I hope that you learn from and enjoy the panel today, and hope that you also have a wonderful, wonderful time at the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Alsobrooks, for spearheading the historic Genius Act in July It was the first time the Senate passed comprehensive legislation addressing digital assets. We're going to adequately celebrate the senator's role in that act during this conversation. But for now, I want to really say your leadership in spearheading this act and your advocacy around generational wealth provides a foundation for us today, and we really, really appreciate you. I lead Bloomberg Philanthropy's Greenwood Initiative. We are a national philanthropic effort focused on wealth building across the United States. Please allow me to give a quick disclaimer. I am not an expert on AI or cryptocurrency, so like many of you, I'm still learning the nuances. I think that puts me in a little bit of advantage in this conversation because I can hopefully ask questions that will be interesting and accessible for everybody in the audience, regardless of what your knowledge of these technologies are. We have an expert panel today, and we're really excited to dig into the urgency of these emerging technologies and some of the opportunities that are available for wealth building across the country as we jump in. Please allow me to introduce our distinguished panel, James Norman. James is a serial entrepreneur and managing partner at Black Operated Ventures, a seed fund that backs extraordinary founders solving complex problems with technology. Ashley Scott, Senior Director of Global Policy and Public Affairs at Circle. Ashley is a policy and fintech leader who globally shapes digital currency policy and strategy. Cleb Meador, President of Blockchain Leadership Institute and Executive Director of the Blockchain Foundation. And last but definitely not least, Megan Holston Alexander is a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, where she leads the Cultural Leadership Fund, the first Silicon Valley venture fund comprised exclusively of Black cultural leaders. If you didn't get the memo, we were doing gold and green, and we were coordinated in this conversation. So thank you all so much. We're going to jump right in. Senator Alsobrooks has challenged us to explore how new technologies will reshape wealth-building opportunities for Black-led businesses and entrepreneurs. Specifically, we want to get right in the middle of, will we lead the transformation or will we be left behind? So James and Megan, you are on the front lines as investors. I'm going to start with you. How should entrepreneurs in the room approach staying ahead of the innovation curve and leveraging emerging technologies like AI? I'm going to give Megan the mic first.
Thank you so much. So first, let me say I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much, Senator Alsobrooks, for opening up this space for us to share our expertise. It means a ton to share the stage with each of you, so thank you for that. And that's a really, really important question, because one thing about our community is that entrepreneurship is not new to us, right? So from the days where we may not have been able to get jobs at specific places or corporations, we found a way to make money, which is entrepreneurship, right? And now what we have to figure out is how do we maintain those companies in an environment that's moving very, very quickly. So I think the first thing that's most important is being open to change. I think one of the most common phrases in our community, y'all know this one, they're stuck in their ways. You know that one? She's just stuck in her ways. We can't be stuck in our ways, right? We have to look towards the future and understand that the opportunity will leave us behind if we don't lean in. One of the things that I talked about yesterday, the fear of AI, what we should know is that we can use AI to teach us how to use AI. Right? So we've all heard of ChatGPT or LLMs that are easily searchable. The first thing that you should do is use it to search. And you can use it to say, hey AI, what AI companies can I use to do X, Y, or Z? Those entrepreneurs are constantly thinking about the challenges that you have. I need to pitch to this, I'm a fashion designer, I need to pitch to Macy's tomorrow. I need a pitch deck. I need to figure out how to do a financial model. I need to figure out what are the community organizations that might support an initiative like this. You can do those by querying items like, corporations like ChatGPT, tools like ChatGPT. So I would say, first, get you a good tool that you like to search on. The second thing I would say is, figure out what the problems are you have and ask AI what AI exists to create those things. So if you're doing a pitch deck, it might be a company like Gamma. right? You can put in all of your past information, debts that you used to have, products that you had in prior years, and it'll tell you, hey, here's a deck using your same flow, using your same creative, using your same graphics for your new information, right? So there are all these different tools, whether it's creating a deck or a financial model that exist. It's just about going out and figuring out what they are. The hardest part is usually getting started. We talk about AI in this like big kind of cloud, but we don't know what the starting point is. And a lot of times you can search for what you need as the place to start. So I'll start there.
Yeah, that's great. Megan is talking about the mindset that we need, along with, some of the things that we can do to jump right in. James, I want to ask you, when you think about Black founders, what unique challenges do Black founders of tech-enabled companies face?
I don't think it's terribly different than what Megan was talking about. It's exacerbated a little bit because when you're building a tech company, you need access to capital to like make venture scale. And so right now, you can teach yourself through using the LLMs, and you should be like diving down that rabbit hole. You do want to be able to qualify some of the information that comes back to you, because of course, like depending on how you're querying, you might receive some like hallucinations or some like self-fulfilling bias. But you should be using those tools to figure out how to build different things. Now, as an entrepreneur, right now there's a big information gap between where I'm at in Silicon Valley and where everybody else is at. Like, if your feet don't touch ground there, you can guarantee you're at least 2 months behind, right? If not more. New technology is emerging every day, and I think that there's a similarity when she says, hey, like people aren't necessarily adopting fast enough. It feels very similar to like back in the 90s when like you'd be on the internet. Like, I was on the internet in 91. You know what I'm saying? Like cats were not having no computers, not really getting into the internet until it was a .com boom of sorts, right? Until it was becoming mass adoption. And right now, that's too long of a time to wait to become adopted to this technology. So as an entrepreneur, like, if you intend to be building something at venture scale, you want to achieve something like a Dropbox or something like that, you have to build AI native. You have to have AI within your development processes, or you won't be able to move at the speed that is now basically expected in order to attract venture capital. So that's the first piece, like breaking that information gap is important. Like my nonprofit, Transparent Collective, next year we're going to build out a house in Silicon Valley where we'll allow a 3-month residency, which is how I got to the Valley, where I lived in the house and I was immersed into the culture. You kind of have to do that now. Find the most extraordinary people from each market and bring them to where this is going on, and allow them to go back to the market so they can spread that word. So I think that's the piece right now, is like getting access to the latest tools and ensuring that you're building your business with the latest technology. So like, give you one example, there's a company, Black founder, one of the more successful Black founders that raised capital from 10 years ago. His company has experienced some like tough times, the pandemic and whatnot. But I told him, I was like, hey man, you can like automate some things with AI, you can work with some agents. He's like, well, I'm not an engineer. I'm like, it's okay, you're smart, you're problem solving, you communicate, you figure it out. I lost track of him for about 9 months. Finally found him the other day, he was like, he couldn't stop talking about AI. He was like, I don't have the experience you're saying. I just built the agents that run our entire supply chain. Now I'm a supply chain team. Now it's like, I can build this agent. There's only 4 employees here. Yeah, now we're not making 9 million anymore, but we're making 5 million, and there's 4 employees instead of 80 employees, right? And so it's like as a business builder, to be able to structure your situation such that you can have those kinds of economies of scale, and then think about who are the most extraordinary people I'm going to put in place to scale the company. It's functionally a different way to build a company. And so we have to start thinking differently around how these things are done. And then once you get yourself in place, you can keep building. I think traditionally our gap as Black founders is having technical co-founders.
Yeah.
That's no longer a gap. If you have the tenacity and you want to win, you can build. Like there is no gap. And so just change the commitment to what's possible, and where you just show up and learn to raise money and build something.
Thank you, James. Megan, I'm going to come back to you because the fund that you lead is specifically focused on Black cultural leaders. Tell us about, James gave us an example of a business that's really exciting. What trends are you seeing? What businesses are you seeing that are leveraging AI in really interesting ways?
Yeah, so when we talk about Black cultural leaders, for us, one of the things we realized very early on in our journey is that Black culture leads everything. It leads the way people dress and the way they want to talk and the way they want to dance and the technology that they want to use. But very often we weren't having the opportunity to invest in the companies that we were helping to make possible. And so for CLS, we focus on cultural leaders. So this is the world's greatest athletes, entertainers, musicians, C-level executives who may or may not be in tech, but they're interested in tech. They're interested in innovation. They want to play a role in the things that are being built across this industry, and we get to be their on-ramp into doing that. And for us, it's very much focused around what you said, Senator Alsobrooks, about wealth building, because technology has been the greatest generator of wealth over the last 20 years. Most things don't even come close. So how do we make sure that our community is getting a piece of that pie, especially when we're contributing to its success? And so we've helped a number of those executives do things like join boards of early stage tech companies, and getting into a company as a board member pre-IPO, so before going public, is a great way to build wealth. Being on the cap table of a company early on is a great way to build wealth. Working at a tech company early on is a great way to build wealth. So that's really what we focus on. And in addition to helping them invest into these companies, we help them create partnerships and opportunities to be ambassadors in different ways for them. So you can think of folks like, okay, who's heard of BBLG? Yes? Okay, the last, let me know. Oh, hello. Oh, the person I'm about to talk about is her brother. So the creator of that is this wonderful creator named Wallonius. And he used AI to make that song. And he's gone on since then to create a number of different things that have gone viral and have been big movers of the culture using AI. And so what AI does, it helps people who either know tech and know creative, but also people who've never been creators or been able to be that technical person to do this, express themselves in a way that's really meaningful. In addition to doing that, it also helps small business owners to supercharge their businesses to create more revenue. We're actually really strong believers at our firm that there will be a one-person billion-dollar company because of AI. You don't need all the team, you don't need all of those operating costs. And we think that that can happen with just one person in the very, very near future. So we love to help folks learn how to use the tools that we invest in, and we've just seen it be successful across a number of different verticals from our firm, from health to entertainment, American dynamism, bio and health. There's just so many spaces for AI to help people be successful.
If I could just quickly piggyback on that, so like, again, I get to piggyback off Megan, she always talks straight. So like, basically what she's expressing there is like, we've undervalued some of the people who are investors in her fund, whether you're playing sports, you're an entertainer, you're a musician, like the people who make the best music, the people who perform the highest in sports, these people all have genius in them, right? They're all super smart. They've not been able to apply that to technology in certain ways because of barriers, which is language barrier. They'd be like me going to Germany and not speaking German. Can't do it. You know, I can kind of feel it out, but I can't do it. That barrier is broken. These people can participate in new ways that they once couldn't before. And because we are purveyors of culture and we're great communicators and storytellers, it is those things and like inclinations that you need to build today, which then separates you from the traditional people building business. So like, when you think about Black women being the largest population entrepreneurs in the country, like per capita, right? Like, you think about the things that Black men have also accomplished. Like, you're in a position now where if you do connect these dots, you do leverage this technology to build your business, we could have a massive point of inclusion, right? Because we're the ones shifting culture anyways, driving what people are buying, you know, deciding how things should look and feel. So if you can actually be the one who builds and drives that, it functionally changes things. So I just think it's a very interesting moment where if you can pull in on this and really operate, you'll be able to be a part of a movement that actually begins to allow us to generate wealth in this way.
I want to ask you all one last question. You talked about mindset shifts that need to happen. You talked about how much enablement and expansion and opportunities for scale can happen for the entrepreneur, and even getting them to the table. But the table is still the table, and we know that we need funding. So I would really love for you to speak to beyond traditional VC, like what other innovative funding models that you're seeing across the country to really help resource and support Black-owned ventures to scale.
I think it's a great place for you to start.
Well, you know, venture is venture, right? It's about one thing, like getting 100x returns on interesting ideas that can scale across populations and make world change, right? Like, not everybody's gonna build a venture scale company. Like, one should not feel entitled to do that. But people can build businesses into interesting things. So I think that's where you get creative with the capital. So for Black Ops, we're leading seed rounds in like venture scale companies. That's what we do, right? We find the most extraordinary Black founders, help them scale, go from there, right? And we want them to have, unfortunately now it won't be tens of thousands of employees, but we want them to have hundreds of employees at least that can also become millionaires when those companies exit, because that's how wealth transfers through these types of events, right? But when you start thinking about getting creative, like I was with my friend this morning, and he's now leading an effort with the Bombers and Gates Foundation, where they put together $1 billion fund that's about to become mobile, that will invest into companies that don't necessarily have venture scale, but have a lot of meaning to our community and our world, right? So it has adjusted returns expectations, so not 100x, but maybe 10x, and a portion of those returns go back to the fund, kind of like how it has been done at CLF and things of that nature, or TXO, and what happens then is someone who says, "Oh, I built this software for parole officers to like better onboard people back in society." Well, that business might not ever reach a multi-billion-dollar value, but it could be worth 100 million, right? And it's something we do need. We do want these people to get back to society properly. So like that fund will be backing those things, and then taking that money back, we're taking returns back in and backing what people doing those great things for the world. So I think like these kind of adjusted return, minorly philanthropic approaches to investment can work well for things that we know we're going to build and be best at building that might not be multi-billion. So that's like one way to do it.
And I actually think you bring up a great point about how people fantasize about venture capital, and it's a very specific asset class meant to do a very specific thing. And since we're talking about AI, it's kind of a perfect moment to talk about how AI is actually eliminating the need for massive amounts of capital. For example, a lot of AI companies, as you'll read in the news over the last probably year or so, are becoming profitable in a matter of months, right? So when it used to take you a year or two to get to $1 million of revenue, you can do that in 2 months now. And so there's a really great opportunity here for people to be able to scale companies with AI that we hadn't seen before. So I would say that one of the alternative models is building a really great company that can fund itself.
Wonderful. All right, so we're going to broaden the perspective on this conversation just a little bit to talk about the needed policies and business practices as we think about innovation and those opportunities to make sure that we are situated again at the center. And our other two panelists here, we're going to bring into the conversation club and actually have unique perspective on another emerging technology as we shift towards cryptocurrency. Cleb, could you start and bring your expertise in blockchain and cryptocurrency and give us a 30-second explainer of the difference in these two concepts? Because one of the things that even as we were prepping is that we realized that people use these terms, these concepts, these technologies interchangeably, and they are in fact distinct.
Well, I want to say thank you very much for moderating this panel. Thank you to Senator Alsobrooks for convening this panel and for having this conversation and for this unique conversation around generational wealth. I do want to just reiterate, I am Cleb Meador. I am the Executive Director of Blockchain Foundation. We are 501c3. We focus on being a bridge to public institutions. The public institutions are seeing the largest adoption. Most people do not know that the earliest adopters of cryptocurrency are communities of color, the working class, and young people. And a lot of the advocacy groups that many of you in this audience lead, that it is your constituents that are asking you about this conversation. The great thing about this larger conversation about emerging technologies is that technology has advanced to the place where most of the applications are drag and drop. You don't need to be technical. Your grandmother could create a website or an app in probably, half a day, maybe even an hour. But so today, emerging technologies is more accessible to us than ever. So blockchain and cryptocurrency, my two passions. I first learned about Bitcoin when I served in the Obama administration in 2013. I know there's a lot of FOMO, but I think it's important for people just to level set. It's not that sexy, although it seems so. So here's a 30-second definition of blockchain technology, and then we'll back into cryptocurrency. So blockchain is really technology that does three things. It securely verifies information. facilitates the exchange of value without third parties. I'll say that again. Blockchain is simply technology that securely verifies information. That's the ledger you hear about. Facilitates the exchange of value. That's cryptocurrencies. Without third parties, that's decentralization. And then cryptocurrencies, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, stablecoins, all beautiful and bright. Think of them as the light. In this room, we have all different types of light, right? But what powers light is electricity. So think of all of the cryptocurrencies you may be trading or you may own. Think of them as light. And think of blockchain as the electricity that powers that light. I'm staying very simple because you need to understand what a waste electricity would be if all we did with it was light. And think of all of
so good. Girl, oh my God. So good. Please keep going.
But think of all of the things we do with electricity that we don't even know about. That's the power of the blockchain technology. So we shouldn't get so stuck in cryptocurrency that we lose our minds because we don't even understand what we do with electricity. So that is the power of blockchain technology. And I'll stop there because it doesn't need to go deeper. That is your starting point. And then for anybody who wants to know more, start with your industry. If you're a nurse, only focus on how healthcare is being impacted. If you're an attorney, an accountant, focus on how it's affecting the legal space. Accountants and attorneys, those groups have created so much information for folks that you don't have to go to YouTube. You can go to the big four accounting firms, the law firms, and they actually have accredited reports for you. So stay with the basics, start with your own domain, and ease in. And again, not that sexy, so you don't have to be driven by FOMO. And it's a technology that is there to be useful, which means it will wait for you until you learn, until you get comfortable, then you can actually adapt.
So thank you so much, Clem. I think one of the things to point out is starting. That's one of the things that all of you all said with either of these technologies, and making sure that we don't allow all the debate, all of the understanding and deep understanding to prohibit us from thinking about how they impact our day-to-day lives and our businesses and the opportunities that we can have. Ashley, I'm gonna come to you because Circle played an instrumental role in partnership with the Senator in passing the Genius Act. And I wanted to first create a moment, because we have to go back to the Senator and her role around why was this legislation so important, and what role and you've described the role and partnership that you all had.
Yeah, let's start first with why are stablecoins important, right? Why was this such an important area to legislate around? So when you think about entrepreneurship, merchant, what is center point to any entrepreneur? The movement of money, right? And so why? You have to pay your suppliers. You have to pay your employees. You have to move your capital quickly from bank to bank. But let's think about payments today. Business is 24/7, 365 days a week. Banks work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And then when you think about if you're a global merchant, right? If you're trying to create supply chains throughout the diaspora, there's so many obstacles. Does your bank have a corresponding bank in Nigeria, right? How long will it take to settle that transaction? Because I may lose money in that transaction because on Monday, the dollar to naira was one, and then on Wednesday, the dollar to naira was different. And so you're finding a lot of entrepreneurs paying a lot of fees to banks as insurance, right, to do those deals. So we are living in a global economy, and it's so important for Black people to see the diaspora as our economy. So why stablecoins and blockchain technology are so important? Stablecoins and blockchain technology allow you to send money as easy as sending an email. So it doesn't matter if it's going from a Gmail to a Yahoo. It doesn't matter if your email is going from the US to the UK. You can send money. Why are stablecoins? Stablecoins are literally just the digital representation of fiat money. So here, the most popular stablecoin within all of digital assets are United States dollar denominated stablecoins. So basically here at Circle, what we do is mint and issue a digital dollar. Why is that so important? Because all transactions globally are dominated in the US dollar. The dollar is the global reserve currency. I just got back from Kenya and South Africa, and the two things I hear from the entrepreneurs in those regions are, we want access to dollars, and we want the ability to do transactions throughout the world. And unfortunately, places that look like us in the Caribbean and Africa, that access to the banking system, that access to the dollar is really in a caste system. Who gets that? So when you power stablecoins, right, US denominated stablecoins with blockchain technology, you create a great unlock, right? There's a agribusiness. I didn't know this. In Kenya, there are a lot of flower farms, and there is a huge market demand for those flowers in the UAE. I met with a business that basically turns the Kenyan shilling into a USD denominated stablecoin and does the transactions between these farmers and in the UAE. And the farmers were complaining, we didn't do this because it took too long to get paid, right? The flowers, the net 30 doesn't work for us in settlement. The flowers would wilt, everything, so many different things. And so the speed of payment unlocked a new economy for them to keep these flowers going. So now you have like this black global economy that's powering through. So this is a big buildup to what Senator Alsobrooks did this year, right? First term senator, Senate banking, amongst other black leadership with Senator Lisa Rochester and Senator Warnock, in passing the first financial legislation in 10 years since Dodd-Frank. We really do have to applaud that Senator Alsobrooks really started her term saying, hey, I'm interested, I want to know, and let us be a part of the conversation. Because what I will say is that although there's federal legislation, that is a good thing for entrepreneurs in this room who are thinking about getting into this market. Cleb will tell you, this is still very nascent. Yes, you have the big companies that I'm sure Megan works for with her firm, but now with rules of the world is your oyster to innovate in this space. And so with the Genius Act marks not only a significant step in black leadership in finance and entrepreneurship, but a significant step in black innovation, right? To really create an ecosystem for people to create.
Cleb, coming back to you, you've talked a lot about just literacy as it relates to cryptocurrency. What is it that you think that all of us need to know about the future of cryptocurrency and how it's going to unlock increased business opportunity and lead to financial inclusion that Ashley just talked about?
Yeah, so for all of you, financial literacy is not a favor, it is financial education, so update your narrative. But why? Because it's about education. As Ashley just mentioned, we passed stablecoin legislation. Now we have to educate entrepreneurs about this new opportunity. We have to even educate everyday people, including seniors who may one day get their stimulus checks via a stablecoin. We have to make sure, so many segments of society. So education is core, but I do want to build on why it's so important for small businesses, even on that people on education. Actually made great points about this movement of money, but for entrepreneurs, e-commerce businesses, small businesses, accepting payments is the biggest pain point, and stablecoins creates a new POS that is cheaper, faster. When you look at companies like Stripe, they're leveraging Circle and others to actually create that new POS that won't be, so your favorite spot locally, you won't have to be like, I can only accept Zelle or cash. But also, we know we have traditional businesses that need to innovate, right? Mom and pops, small businesses like laundromats. And we talked about technology being so accessible because of the applications of drag and drop. So we need to make sure that we're educating small businesses so that they can innovate and access these technologies. But we also need to engage credit unions, minority banks, community banks. They are on the front lines of our communities. And right now, we're authorizing all of these larger banking institutions. But let's be honest, the largest adopters, communities of color, working class, young people, they're more likely to trust a credit union or a minority bank in their community. So at the Blockchain Foundation, last year we did a report making the case that they must be educated, not only because they can service the need for cryptocurrencies to their communities, but they can also offer financial education. They'll be on the front lines to actually do that important piece. And we need to make sure, we actually have a provision at Blockchain Foundation where we're hoping that we can get in the Senate market structure bill for the OCC, the Fed, and the FDIC to do a study to look at what is the pathway through partnerships to authorize CDFIs and MDIs to actually offer the digital assets, right? We saw the NCUA give guidance to credit unions over the last 4 years by providing guidance for partnerships. So through partnerships, we can actually empower our CDFIs and MDIs that do give small business loans, that can ensure that, you know, if an FTX happens again, that they actually know who their patrons are. But more importantly, you've heard that crypto ATMs are predatory, and a lot of them are. And it is a predatory approach because they're going to these communities. But I don't want to blame the crypto ATMs. I want to blame regulators because we can't keep only limiting our communities to these predatory actions and saying, oh, it's terrible, right? So if the crypto ATM is all I have, that's all I'm going to use. But if we can authorize our credit unions and our minority banks or CDFIs to offer financial education, to offer the tools, this opportunity can be more accessible to all of us.
Okay, I'm gonna start wrapping this up because I'm getting the time cues. I knew this was gonna be a robust conversation. The theme I'm looking here on the screen, it says power, policy, and progress, which we've hit on, but I wanna just wrap us up and ask, even the senator has acknowledged that the Genius Act was the first crucial step in a host of legislative action needed. So from where each of you sit, and I'll start with James, what is one policy or legislative action that you think matters most for entrepreneurs to really be at the center and at the front of all this innovation?
It's hard to say. Like, I'm not in DC that much, so policy and legislation is my high thing. You know, if I had to think about it, like she kind of inadvertently said, you know, knowing who the patrons were and whatnot, right? Like, blockchain is like a secure contract situation, and so I think like having some legislation around identity and management of that is going to be pretty important. Again, like we're the ones perpetuating culture, doing all these things. People will begin to copy us and do things like that, right? So your identity will begin to be kind of in jeopardy to some degree. We're not able to have some legislation around that. So I think that's one piece. And I don't know, I think the other piece is probably around what it is to decentralize, like actually artificial intelligence. I think if you have like, I have no problem with Sam. Like I sit down with him, I think he's a nice guy, but ultimately, like, are we the same people? No. So like, do I trust the future of the world to like these 3 or 4 people that have these massive foundational models that you can operate on top of? It's probably crazy to do that. So I think like the decentralization of that through what she's talking about, like leveraging blockchain as a compute source, as a source of like verified knowledge for LLMs. I think legislation around that probably becomes pretty important so that so much power is centralized to so few people.
I think Senator Alsobrooks mentioned this. Now that Genius Act is passed, right, and you're regulating the movement of digital dollars, the next is regulating the digital marketplace. And something I hope you all really took to heart that Senator Alsobrooks mentioned is that sitting in those rooms and arguing and having very heated discussions with people across the aisle, the fact that, just to set the background, the Genius Act had 18 Democrats that voted for that bill. in a very partisan environment that we have today, it is a huge accomplishment to get a piece of legislation that both sides can come to the table, stay at the table, and move forward into law. So as we move on to this next iteration of what we need to do in developing the regulatory framework around digital assets, I think a lot of credit needs to be given to Senator Alsobrooks and her colleagues in keeping Black folks at the table, in keeping Democrats at the table, and not letting technology and emerging technology become a partisan subject matter.
I've already shared that Blackstone Foundation has a provision we're trying to get in the Senate bill focused on CDFIs and MDIs, and the provision only asks for a study to be done by OCC, the Fed, and FDIC to actually look at the pathway through partnerships to authorizing them so that they can offer financial education and digital assets. So that's what we want from Blockchain Foundation, right? And Ashley will tell you, what SOCO needs and some of the policy considerations. In the 1990s, when we debated the framework for the internet, we could not have imagined that a few decades later, the internet would be controlled by a handful of wealthy individuals. So we can't do what we did in the 1990s, right? So Ashley and I are gonna continue on the crypto policy. I'm gonna promote what we think is right for Blockchain Foundation. She's gonna promote what she thinks is right for SOCO and the stablecoin future. But we need you. We need those of you who advocate for key stakeholders and constituents to be at that table. We cannot have these legislations be defined by a small subset of groups, because we know what happened in the 1990s, and we're gonna fast forward, the same thing is gonna happen. So you don't have to actually read 200 words of a bill, but we can think about, just like for us, we thought about how do we create access, what are the pipelines and credit unions and MDIs and FDIs or that pathway. Many of you lead organizations where you actually are thinking about the future of money and how to build generational wealth. You actually want this legislation to actually impact your constituents. So we need you at the table. We need more people, and you don't have to be educated. You don't have to you don't have to understand blockchain. What you have to understand is the problems that need to be solved. So I would say for us, we need more stakeholders part of these conversations as we move towards market structure, and then many other bills that we're going to be advancing.
Thank you for that.
Yes, so this part I think is really important, because our firm is really committed to a number of things. The first, very specifically, leveling the playing field for startups and small businesses. They are an incredibly important part of the innovation economy, and I think any regulation that is created needs to be sure that those small challengers can compete and things are not controlled by keeping the larger companies having their market share. So we actually are really focused on this little tech agenda. We're focused on startups and small businesses and being sure that we level the playing field for them. The second consideration from a policy perspective that I think is really important is going to be making sure that we continue to focus on the small companies, the smaller agendas, because they need to be able to really compete in this environment.
Thank you so much. I'm literally giving the flags. Come up, Senator. Thank you to all of our panelists for this great conversation today.
Wasn't that incredible? Can you help me to please thank Juanita, Megan, Ted, Ashley, and Jane? They did such an incredible job. I'd also like to thank our sponsors. Bloomberg Greenwood Initiatives is the lead sponsor. I'd like to also thank Circle and Care First, as well as TD Bank, who were our incredible sponsors. Can we thank them, please? You all have been an amazing audience. I want to thank you, first of all, for your interest in these issues, for showing up today, and you know what, for demonstrating a level of faith. It takes faith to show up and to continue to prepare in light of everything that we have seen. But I think if I leave you with a couple of words before we leave, it is to get ready. Do not be constrained by what we see in this moment. My 2 words, if you don't remember anything else that I say today, get ready. Engage here. We're going to emerge stronger than ever. And just again, want to thank all of you for coming out today. I would be remiss I know there are a lot of friends in the audience. I just happened to look over and see the president of Bowie State University, Dr. Arminta Bro, who's in the audience. I want to I know there are lots of other luminaries here, so I apologize for that. Just wanted to acknowledge her. Also, I would be remiss, I have an incredible team. They are in the room today. They are powerhouses, but I have one in particular who this was her baby and her brainchild, Joy Arnold Russell, who organized the Clean Up Joy and Massachusetts team, who's my senior advisor. I know I'm going to be in trouble. DeAndre, Gina Ford, who else did I miss? Oh, Paxton is in the back, Antoinette, who's with me at all times. So I just want to thank this incredible team. Shelton, who's our CBCF intern, who's in the room. You all know I was a Congressional Black Caucus intern 33 years ago. I'm telling my age. But anyway, thank you all so much again. Enjoy the rest of the week.